Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, where we break down important topics in an approachable and informative way. Whether you're a political junkie or just someone trying to make sense of it all, you're in the right place. Today we're diving into the US House of Representatives, what it does, its history, and how it impacts you as a voter. And most importantly, 5 things that need to change. The House has been a cornerstone of American democracy since 1789, but over the years, it's faced growing challenges, from gerrymandering to outdated rules that make it less effective at truly representing the people. If you've ever wondered why Congress seems so broken or how things can improve, stick around. We're going to break it down step by step, and together, we'll explore practical solutions to fix these issues. Let's start with the basics. The US House of Representatives is one of 2 chambers of Congress, alongside the Senate. It's made up of 435 members, each representing one of the 435 districts across our country. These districts are based on population, so states with larger populations, like California, have more representation. 52 in total, while states with smaller populations have just 1, including Alaska, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Delaware. But what does the House actually do? Well, one of its biggest responsibilities is introducing and passing major pieces of legislation. Any bill related to government spending, like federal budget or tax law, must start in the House of Representatives. The House plays a critical role in lawmaking. It's responsible for initiating revenue bills, impeaching federal officials, and even choosing the president in the case of an electoral college tie. So as you can see, the House holds significant power, making it essential to understand how it works. And this probably leads you to wonder why Congress seems so broken and how it can improve. There's so much to cover, so let's dive in with number 5. Coming in at number 5, the districts in the House of Representatives are unequal, and that's a huge problem. The House currently has 435 seats, but the population across these districts varies drastically. In some states, a single district might represent nearly twice the amount of people as a district in another state. This imbalance is known as malapportionment, and it creates an uneven playing field. Here's an example. In Rhode Island's 1st district, a single representative speaks for about 550,000 people. Meanwhile, in Delaware's only district, each representative serves just under 1 million people. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that a voter in Rhode Island's district has nearly 2 times more representation in the House than a voter in Delaware. That's not just unfair, it undermines the very idea of equality in a democracy. So why is this happening? Well, it's partly because the number of seats in the House hasn't changed since 1929, even though the US population has nearly tripled. And back then, 435 seats might have made sense, but today, it's causing serious problems for fair representation. By increasing the number of seats, states with larger populations like Texas, California, and Florida would gain the most representation. Meanwhile, smaller states like Wyoming wouldn't lose any seats, but their influence would be much more proportional. So how can we make it more fair? Adding more seats to the House would require Congress to pass a law. They could use something like the Wyoming rule, which sets the population of the smallest state as the standard for district sizes. That would mean significantly more seats in the House, but also much fairer representation. For example, California could gain around 18 seats, while Texas might add 17 more, and Florida about 13 extra seats. Under the Wyoming rule, the House might grow to around 600 members, ensuring each district has roughly the same number of people. These changes would bring us closer to the principle of one person, one vote. The bottom line, if we want the House to truly represent the people, we must expand it. It's not just an idea, it's a necessary step towards a fair democracy. And now let's move to number 4, and it's a big one, gerrymandering. At number 4, we have gerrymandering, a term you've probably heard, but let's break it down a little bit more. Gerrymandering is when politicians manipulate boundaries to benefit their party. Instead of voters choosing their representatives, gerrymandering allows for representatives to choose their voters. This practice has a massive impact on elections. How? Well, by drawing district lines that packs opposition voters into one single area or thins them out across many. Let's look at an example. Imagine a state with 20 yellow voters and 30 blue voters divided into 5 districts. Notice how the gerrymandered districts have an odd, unnatural shape designed to secure political advantage? How you draw the lines can drastically change the outcome. In a fair system, you'd expect 2 districts to favor yellow and 3 to favor blue, reflecting the population. But with strategic manipulation, the results can completely flip, creating unfair representation and leaving many voters feeling silenced. And it's not just about elections, it's about democracy. So what can we do about it? Well, one solution is independent redistricting commissions. States like California and Arizona use these commissions to draw fair maps without partisan interference. These commissions focus on keeping districts compact, contiguous, and reflective of actual communities, not political agendas. And they're working. Studies show that states with independent commissions have more competitive elections and fairer outcomes. The bottom line, gerrymandering distorts democracy, but we have the tools to fix it. Let's move on to number 3. Another key issue in the House of Representatives, term lengths. The 2-year term lengths for the House of Representatives might seem like a good way to keep them accountable to voters, but in reality, it's a major obstacle in effective government. The 2-year term was established in the 18th century, when communication was slow and campaigning was far simpler. Back then, it made sense to have frequent elections, to ensure the representatives stayed close to the will of the people. But today, modern elections are a completely different story. Representatives spend much of their time raising money, preparing for re-election, and managing media appearances. And the result? Instead of focusing on legislating and solving long-term issues, members of Congress are locked into a perpetual campaign cycle. On average, House members spend up to 30 hours, or 75% of a full-time job per week fundraising. That's time they could be spending drafting bills, meeting with constituents, or working on bipartisan solutions. So what is the solution? Well, one idea is to extend the House terms from 2 to 4 years. This change would allow representatives to focus more on governing and less on constantly running for re-election. 4-year terms are not a new idea. Many countries like Canada and the UK have parliamentary systems where members serve 4 to even 6 years. Even within the US, senators serve 6 years, which allows for a better balance in campaigning and governing. Of course, with longer terms, there would need to be other reforms to ensure accountability, like fair elections and stronger ethic rules. But extending term lengths could be a critical step towards giving representatives what they need to actually do their jobs. The bottom line, 2-year terms no longer serve our democracy. By increasing term lengths, we give the representatives the time they truly need to represent us. Coming in at number 2, a lack of accountability in the House of Representatives and how we can fix it. In many districts, elections are so uncompetitive that representatives don't have to worry about losing their seat, no matter how well they perform. These are often called safe districts, where one party has such a strong majority that the other barely stands a chance of winning. Studies show that over 90% of House elections are decided by a margin of 10% or more. That means in most districts in the United States of America, voters have little real choice, and representatives face minimal pressure to truly represent their constituents. So what's the result of these safe districts? Representatives who don't feel accountable to their voters. They can ignore public opinion, push partisan agendas, and even avoid debates without worrying about losing their job. One solution to increase accountability is ranked choice voting. Here's how it works. Instead of voting for just one candidate, voters will rank them in order of preference. If no candidate gets the majority, the lowest ranked candidate is eliminated and their votes are redistributed based on the second choices. This system ensures that winners have broad support from voters, making it hard for extreme or unresponsive candidates to win in competitive districts. Another idea is to introduce open primaries where voters can participate regardless of which party they're in. This increases competition and encourages candidates to appeal to a broader range of voters instead of just their base. Here's the difference. In closed primaries, only registered party members can vote, which often leads to more extreme candidates. But in open primaries, anybody can vote, giving moderate and independent voters more influence. Both of these reforms, ranked choice voting and open primaries, would increase competition, hold representatives accountable, and ensure that the House reflects the will of the people. The bottom line, without accountability, representatives have no incentive to work for their constituents. By changing the way we vote, we can make Congress more responsible and representative. Finally, at number 1, we have one of the most significant and often overlooked issues in the House of Representatives, the immense power of the Speaker. The Speaker is not just a figurehead. They hold enormous power over which bills get debated, amended, and voted on. Essentially, if the Speaker doesn't want a bill to move forward, it often never sees the light of day. Here's how the current system works. The Speaker sets the legislative agenda and controls which bills are assigned to committees and even becomes the President in the event that the President and Vice President cannot fill the duty. This centralization of power means a few individuals can decide the fate of legislation that impacts millions of Americans. What's the result? Well, many important issues like healthcare reform, climate action, and voting rights never even make it to the floor for a vote. This leaves millions of Americans feeling like our voices aren't being heard. So what's the solution? Well, one idea is to reform House rules to distribute power more evenly among committees and rank and file members. By empowering committees to bring bills directly to the floor, more voices will have a say in what gets debated. This reform would ensure that issues important to everyday Americans, whether they're rural voters, urban communities, or anyone in between, get the attention they deserve. The bottom line, the Speaker's power is a bottleneck in the legislative process. But with thoughtful reforms, we can make the House more responsive, democratic, and effective. Fixing this issue would go a long way for restoring trust in Congress and making sure that all Americans have a voice in laws that govern them. And there you have it, the top 5 things that need to change in the House of Representatives. But these ideas won't happen without public pressure, so let's keep the conversation going. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe.